The final act. Today, we gather to remember a friend, a mentor, a colleague, and a father. We gather to remember Lawrence Hastings. Oliver shifted uncomfortably on the hard, wooden pew, his thoughts clouded with memories he'd rather forget. Beside him, unfamiliar faces teared up, caught in an emotional reverie, their hands trembling as they dabbed at their eyes with handkerchiefs. The church was adorned with flowers that seemed too bright for the occasion, enhancing the surrealism of an event Oliver struggled to comprehend. At the front, Lawrence lay in his finely polished casket, the man who had told him he was a bad investment so many years ago. It wasn't that Lawrence had meant that in a certain sense, though. Looking at the actual casket, Oliver couldn't help but chuckle bitterly at how well the phrase described their relationship. A rented tux disguised in a sea of tailored suits, his father looked almost serene, a clean, respectful facade in stark contrast to the chaos he had left behind. "It's been nearly a decade since I last saw him," Oliver muttered, the word sour in his mouth. "I would have happily gone another decade without this." His thoughts drifted further as the speeches began, each speaker elevating Lawrence to heights Oliver knew had never been reached during the years they spent together. With every word, every tear shed, the image of a breadwinner, devoted, and noble man was painted, and he couldn't stand listening to the lies anymore. "No one dares to actually say what he was," Oliver mumbled quietly, seeking solace in the ear of his best friend, Jason, who squeezed into the seat next to him, juggling a tiny plate stacked with too many of the leftover hors d'oeuvres from the reception. "Nice of you to finally show up," Jason remarked with half-hearted cheer, an attempt at lightening the moment. He barely glanced at the casket, instead focusing on picking at the small bites, which seemed more appealing to him than the somber event. "These things are basically cocktail parties that happen to have a dead guy inside." Oliver sighed, patience fraying at the edges. "You're not helping." "Hey, at least they didn't skimp on the snacks," Jason chuckled, grabbing another cheese cube, which earned him a few disapproving glances. "They're celebrating a con artist, not a saint," Oliver whispered, returning his attention to the next overdramatic speech. He was trapped in a play he couldn't escape, one in which he questioned whether he was even in the right theater. $50 says we can make an exit soon," Jason offered, his eyes glimmering mischievously. "How long do we need to suffer through this? Half an hour? Let's just say our goodbyes and go find a less dreary venue." Just as Oliver opened his mouth to respond, a particularly sorrowful voice rang from the front, choking back sobs, and he grimaced. "Count me out. I'd prefer to escape the living hell of his legacy rather than listen to people tripping over words in his honor." "Yeah, let's put this behind us," Jason said with a half-hearted grin. "Besides, it's not like he was that great of a father anyway." "Maybe just a bit, mistaken?" The next speaker was already tearing up again, a stranger who swept the crowd with an emotional story about the man who could light up a room. Oliver felt the words crawl under his skin, setting off anger instead of sympathy. "That's convenient," he mused. "No one will notice a three-hatted hat trick from a man who kept more secrets than we'll ever know." Jason leaned closer, catching the unfiltered sarcasm. "What are you thinking? He fooled you into believing he was a decent dad, and now you're questioning if he deserved this farewell?" Oliver smirked. "This celebration of life is just a parade of liars. I'd like to see them try to paint my life in a similar light. I mean, would any of them care if you pulled a disappearing act at this funeral? You'd either leave in a comedy skit or dramatic exit," Jason teased back. The sudden rustling behind drew Oliver's attention away from the funeral he was disenchanted with. A cloaked figure lingered in the doorway, dressed in black attire that merged seamlessly with the shadows of the room. As Jason continued to bounce back and forth in pursuit of the next snack, the figure stepped forward. "Is this the service for Oliver Hastings, son of Lawrence?" Jason instantly shot upright, his protective instincts kicking in as he moved in front of Oliver, shedding the comic act for something more serious. "Yeah, that's him. And you are?" The figure hesitated, peering from under the brim of a broad hat. When finally, they lowered it to reveal a face worn with hardship and barely masked regret, recognition rattled through Oliver. "It's been too long," the stranger said, their voice dark and gravelly, shaking Oliver deeply. "Who the hell are you?" Oliver asked, irritation brewing within him upon seeing the face of someone he'd thought long gone. It was Lawrence's partner, Matt, the man who had slipped through the cracks of his father's deception, yet there he stood. I'm here because I didn't want to say goodbye to the man I cared for, even if he left a mess behind. Can we talk? Talk? Oliver practically laughed, disbelief bubbling. You think you can just walk back into my life after what? Disappearing for years? You had a choice, you always did. Matt's eyes clouded with emotions. I know that now. But I need your help. Lawrence's enemies are circling, and with him gone, they might be coming for me. You can't let them find me. Let me guess, you're still manipulating things from behind the scenes? Matt's voice softened, stepping closer. This isn't about you or me. It was never supposed to be. I was doing it all to protect Lawrence. Surviving means leaving town, and now that he's passed, there's no more shelter. Can you help me get to safety? Please. No. You're not even worthy of my help. At that, the church's front bell toll sounded ominously, signaling the service's end. The mood shifted with finality, families gathered close to share memories, but all Oliver could feel was an overwhelming weight on his chest. Oliver, Jason's voice was low, we can just walk out quietly. She'll never know we're gone. We owe him nothing, Oliver replied harshly. Everyone deserves an exit, Jason insisted. Especially the ones who want to save themselves. With a heavy sigh, Oliver felt torn. Part of him wanted to lash out, let all that anger bubble over, the other part tugged at him to consider the plea being laid bare. Fine, he relented, though the word tasted raw in his mouth. But on one condition, you stay gone once you leave. I don't want contact. I can't handle another dead end. Matt nodded, gratitude flickering in his eyes. Deal. The moments passed in uncomfortable silence, the weight of twisted angles settling in the air until Oliver turned toward the line of mourners. Let's get out of here before we accidentally end up mourning him again, Jason remarked, nudging Oliver gently. As they exited the building, Oliver found himself looking back, wondering if this truly was the end of their shared legacy of deceit. Today, we say goodbye. We say goodbye to hope, to betrayal, and to a father who never truly existed. We say goodbye to Lawrence Hastings, the man who deceived us all. And with that, they stepped together into the uncertainty of the world outside, ready to carve a new path away from lives built on fragile foundations. As they walked out of the church, the sun seemed harsh against the muted tone of the day, washing out the colors of the flowers that adorned the entrance. Oliver noted how surreal it felt to step from a solemn space into the cacophony of the living world outside. Strangers bustled by, their lives untouched by the grief that had just unfolded. He felt a twinge of envy at their simplicity, their everyday concerns. Let's get out of here, Jason suggested, his voice breaking through Oliver's reverie. I could use a stiff drink after all that emotional overload. Yeah, let's find a bar without a view of any more tombs, Oliver replied, forcing a smile and shaking off the heaviness that clung to him. Lead the way. They trudged along the sidewalk, passing familiar pockets of the city that felt both welcoming and painful. Many of the spots they passed held memories of previous escapades, but he couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that still lingered from the funeral. Lawrence had always been larger than life, but somehow, he had never really been a good father even during the good times. Jason stopped abruptly, spinning on his heel. Hey! Are you okay? His brow furrowed in concern. Oliver sighed, grinding his teeth in frustration. Honestly? I'm not sure. I just have all this anger and confusion swirling around in my head. I thought I had buried all of this with him. Well, you didn't spend all these years ignoring it just to walk away from it now. You need to let it out, whatever it is. Jason paused, searching for the right words. Talking it out helps. Even with a third party involved. Burn that bridge a little more. I don't even know if I want to talk to Matt, Oliver admitted, his voice more vulnerable than he expected. I barely trust him, and I'm definitely not keen on adding more emotional baggage. Jason nodded, his expression shifting from concern to understanding. Trust isn't given, it's built. But you're the one in control of whether to let him back in or not. As they stepped into a local pub, the familiar sound of clinking glasses, low laughs, and the hum of conversation enveloped them. The air was thick with the rich aroma of seasoned fries and spilled beer, a world far removed from the church's cold, sterile atmosphere. "2 beers, please," Jason called to the bartender, taking a seat at the counter while Oliver leaned against the bar, mentally debating what to do next. "You all right?" Jason nudged, popping a peanut into his mouth. "You look like you're weighing the scales of justice. That should have been your job after law school, not mine." Oliver chuckled, despite himself. I can't shake off the feeling that I should confront Matt. Like I'm doing myself a disservice by ignoring him, but at the same time, I don't want to dive back into family drama." "Maybe you don't have to do it for him," Jason suggested, looking genuinely concerned. "Consider doing it for you. Getting closure or something." "Closure," Oliver echoed, the word tasting strange on his tongue. "Isn't that just another word that people throw around when they don't actually know how to handle emotions?" Jason shrugged. "Maybe, but it sounds better than dragging all this baggage around indefinitely. Make the dead man's last act your journey forward." "Fine," Oliver sighed. "I'll think about it, but don't expect me to be all cheery about it." "Hey, people don't have to be cheerful to resolve things. They just have to brave." Jason raised his glass, a twinkle in his eye. "To bravery, then." "Sure, I'll drink to that," Oliver replied, clinking his glass against Jason's. The sensation of the cold beer sliding down his throat felt refreshing, and he allowed himself a brief moment of escape before his mind pulled him back under. They drank, they talked about anything and everything, letting the conversation flow from TV shows to upcoming plans, trying to keep the atmosphere light. But inevitably, the topic returned to Lawrence and what lay ahead. "You'll eventually have to face the music, you know," Jason reminded him gently, stroking his glass as if pondering deeply. "At some point, it'll catch up to you. Avoiding him won't keep you safe from the ghosts." "I know," Oliver replied, frustration threading through him. "It's just exhausting. Why couldn't I have just had a father who said something nice for once? What was wrong with that guy?" "Maybe he didn't know how," Jason suggested, cautious not to excuse his behavior. "Some people are more comfortable hiding behind lies than addressing their own truths. Maybe Matt's not a perfect solution, but maybe he can give you a piece of the truth you've been missing." "Truth," Oliver said with a faint smile, taking another sip. "I'd prefer a drink full of honesty over the deception I've gotten from every man in my life." "Then you've got to figure out what the next step looks like," Jason continued. "But I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for me, because I care about you. So however you want to handle it, I'm here." They shared another round of drinks, and with each sip, Oliver felt the fog of confusion lift ever so slightly. By the time they had finished their third, he reached for his phone. "What are you doing?" Jason asked, eyebrows raised. "Just texting Matt," Oliver replied, feeling a flicker of resolve. "I'm going to at least give him a chance to talk. If nothing else, it'll put the past to rest." "Good." Jason grinned, clinking his glass against Oliver's again. "Just don't let him charm his way into your heart. You're not running a charity here." Oliver chuckled as he sent the message, feeling both nervous and oddly liberated. As the reply came through almost immediately, he stared at the screen with a mix of dread and anticipation. "Where would you like to meet?" Before he could second-guess his decision, Oliver took a deep breath and replied with the name of a quiet cafe a few blocks away, a safe place to reclaim a lost thread of connection. "Let's see where this goes," he said, determination replacing his earlier hesitation. "All right then," Jason said, nudging him playfully. "Remember, you're a Hastings, face it head on. If it goes south, we'll be here to drown your sorrows in something stronger than beer." Oliver smiled softly and appreciated the support. "Thanks, Jay. You really are the best." He felt the first flicker of anticipation, allowing it to replace the weight that he'd been carrying. As they finished their drinks and he caught the waiter's attention for the check, Oliver resolved to reclaim control over the chaos that Lawrence had left behind. It was time to navigate the complex dance with his past, to find his own version of what it meant to be free. And somehow, it felt like the first step forward had just begun. As they polished off their drinks and grabbed their coats, Oliver felt the weight of anticipation settle in his stomach. He had sent the message and was now committed to facing Matt, wrestling with the ghosts of his past. Leaving the bar with Jason, they stepped into the cool evening air, the sights and sounds of the city buzzing around them as twilight began to diffuse the light. "Do you have your game face on?" Jason asked, his mischievous smile resurfacing as they walked toward the cafe. "Because you might need it when you see him." "I'll do my best," Oliver replied, trying to keep his tone light, but the nerves were creeping in. "What if he tries to control the conversation, or worse, manipulate me again? I don't want to fall into that trap." Jason shrugged, a knowing look in his eyes. "Just remember who you are. You're not that same kid he deceived. You've grown up. You're your own man now. Don't let him take that from you." As they approached the cafe, a warm glow spilled from the windows, illuminating the small outdoor seating area where people huddled beneath umbrellas, sipping hot drinks and sharing stories. Oliver caught sight of Matt sitting at a small table on the patio, fidgeting with his hands and glancing around as though he was already anxious about the encounter. "Looks like he's just as nervous," Jason walloped Oliver playfully on the back. "You've got this, big guy. Just keep it straightforward." "What if I can't?" Oliver replied, the words slipping out before he could censor himself. "Then you don't have to listen to him," Jason reassured. "Remember, you have power in this interaction. It's your life." With a deep breath, Oliver stepped forward, willing himself into the moment. The closer they got, the clearer it became that Matt had aged, his face lined with worry, though his eyes still radiated a flicker of familiarity. "Oliver," Matt greeted, his voice a mixture of relief and trepidation as he stood to meet them. "Thanks for agreeing to meet. Let's just cut to the chase," Oliver said firmly, surprising himself with how calm he felt. "We don't have to make this into a lengthy affair. What do you want?" Matt blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "I want to apologize. For everything." "Apology won't change the past, Matt," Oliver replied, crossing his arms defensively. "I need to know why you're here now. What are you really after?" Matt hesitated, his eyes searching Oliver's for the understanding that he had sought for so long. "I didn't come here to manipulate you or to take anything from you. I came because you missed out on the life you could have had?" Oliver interrupted, feeling anger bubbling to the surface. "You can't blame me for how it turned out." "No, you're right," Matt said, holding up his hands, pleading for Oliver's patience. "I made mistakes, and they cost me. They cost you, too. I wished I could fix it. When I heard the news about Lawrence, I figured it might be my last chance to make amends before it was truly too late." Oliver's expression softened slightly, seeing genuine remorse in Matt's eyes. But vulnerability was a two-edged sword, and he wasn't ready to swing it defensively. "What exactly do you want from me? Do you want to reconnect?" "I don't expect a relationship, not with all that's happened," Matt replied, his voice measured. "I just want to explain. I realize now that I was complicit in Lawrence's scheme, harboring the secrets that hurt so many people. And when it finally caught up with me, I ran away. I was terrified." "Afraid? Terrified? Is that what you call abandoning me?" Oliver snapped, struggling to rein in his emotions. "Why should I care about your fears? You wouldn't have been there for the fallout, you left us to fend for ourselves." "I know, and I wish I had been there," Matt implored, desperation creeping into his tone. "I tried to stay away for your sake, as strange as that sounds. I thought you would be better off without me hovering around, pulling strings." "Hovering? You were playing puppeteer." Oliver's voice was rising. "You weren't hovering, you were stifling me, controlling me from the shadows." "Maybe I was, and I can't undo that," Matt conceded, his shoulders slumping. "I never wanted to hurt you, Oliver. I truly thought I was doing the right thing, protecting you from the chaos rather than dragging you into it." Oliver took a deep breath, his thoughts racing. There was undeniable pain in Matt's voice, the kind that resonated with scars Oliver understood but didn't want to share. He shuffled his weight from one foot to the other, wrestling with the urge to slam the door of emotion shut and prioritize his own needs. "Look," he finally said, his voice steadier now. I don't know how to forgive you for the past, but I can give you a chance. One chance. Tell me what you need from me, and then I'll decide how or if I want to move forward. Matt glanced at Jason, who stood nearby, expression neutral but supportive. I just want to disconnect from Lawrence's legacy. There are people who believe he's still alive, still peddling lies, and I'm not safe as long as they think they can track me down. I want you to know I'm ready to let go of the past, my past, our past, all of it. We can do that, Jason interjected, his voice firm. You can save yourself from Lawrence's manipulation, and maybe Oliver can find a way to settle the score in his own time. A clean slate, if you will? Matt suggested, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Sure, but no strings attached, Oliver replied, fiercely protective of his territory. Once this is done, you stay out of my life. No turning back to spar with the ghosts after all this. Matt nodded, relief flooding his features. I can accept that. I'll leave it all behind. I needed to say my piece. You have my word. I guess that will have to do for now, Oliver said, his heart racing but feeling like he was taking back a small piece of his own narrative. He could breathe just a bit easier now, no longer feeling like he was trapped under someone else's thumb. Okay, Jason piped up, breaking the tension. Now that we've worked through some heaviness over a coffee, I think it's time to lighten the mood. Lighten the mood? Oliver raised an eyebrow, glancing at Matt, who seemed confused by the shift. Yeah, let's get some dessert. What's your go-to comfort food, Oliver? Let's pull you away from the past and into some cake. Matt chuckled at Jason's jest. Cake sounds great, just as long as it's not a funeral cake. Oliver laughed and finally started to feel the tension ease. As long as it's chocolate, I think I can manage. With an unexpected camaraderie building between Oliver, Jason, and Matt, they made their way into the cafe. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, a comforting contrast to their earlier encounter. As they settled at a cozy table, Oliver realized that although the past couldn't change, the future was still his to shape. He was reclaiming his own narrative, one piece at a time. And maybe, just maybe, he could find a way to coexist with the remnants of his past as he moved into a new chapter, one built on accountability, healing, and perhaps even unexpected camaraderie. The echoes of loss were still there, but for the first time, they felt like distant whispers rather than an impending storm, and that was enough for now.